Bloomberg Audio Studios.
Podcasts, radio, news.
This is the business of sports.
The business of sports can be intimidating or hard for a startup to break into.
We really appreciate when our owners are actually there, with us through the journey.
Teams, ours especially, have been very intentional to diversify at all levels of the company.
I think we're in the golden years for the NFL and college football.
Our demographic reach has continued to expand.
This is going to be really unlocking the streaming platform for sports fans.
Sports valuations are rising. We'll see when they peak.
You don't have to be the best in your sport to make a whole ton of money.
Bloomberg Business of Sports from Bloomberg Radio.
This is the Bloomberg Business of Sports, where we explore the big money issues in the world of sports. I'm Michael Barr, along with Scarlet Fu and Damian Sassower. Coming up today, NFL legend Bill Belichick is now the big man on campus at UNC. We've got the new general manager of the University of North Carolina's football program, Michael Lombardi, joins us to talk about what's next for UNC with Belichick.
The imagery that people have of Bill at the press conference is not who Bill is behind the doors in terms of how he, how he interacts with players, how he communicates to players, how players tend to gravitate to him. He's very direct, very honest. And I think, to me, that's what sells a program.
We'll also talk about some golf with LIV Golf's tournament heading to Miami and one of President-elect Donald Trump's golf resorts. All that is on the way on the Bloomberg Business of Sports. But first, the New York Knicks. They're having another great season led by all-star Jalen Brunson and new arrival Karl Anthony Towns.
Towns a three-pointer. Puts it in! Karl Anthony Towns has 40!
But many Knicks diehards can't watch their hometown team or the New York Rangers or Islanders. Altice USA, which runs Optimum Cable, one of the top cable providers in New York State and the tri-state area, dropped MSG Networks from its lineup on New Year's Day. It's part of an escalating dispute between MSG and Altice, and the latest example of content providers and distributors playing hardball with each other. For more on what's going on between MSG and Altice, we welcome Bloomberg telecom and entertainment reporter Kelcee Griffis.
Thanks for having me.
Well, it's kind of a sticky situation. The Knicks-Rangers game, you can't get them for Altice cable subscribers. Why?
Yeah, so this is kind of an interesting, impasse that these two companies have come up against. You have Altice, that is obviously one of the biggest cable providers in the New York area, having this agreement with MSG Networks, or Sphere Entertainment, I guess as they're now called, falling through. These companies just came to an impasse, and they could not agree to the terms through which Altice would carry the programming.
And part of why they can't come to an agreement is because it's expensive to pay for these sports rights. And MSG Networks wants to charge a lot of it because they carry a lot of different teams. What is the thinking behind Altice trying to, leverage its negotiating stance with MSG Networks? Yeah,
so Altice is saying basically that MSG is charging them too much. They were saying that it would cost up to $10 per subscriber more for them to keep offering this content to their subscribers. So they were saying actually that their data supports the fact that not a lot of their customers, or at least not the majority of their customers, are even tuning into sports. So they want to just drop the extra cost across the board and then let the subscribers that are sports fans and do want to tune in pay for that content over the top.
So is there any resolution in sight? I mean, how are we going to get the Rangers and the Knicks or whoever it is back on the air? I mean, is there some resolution being discussed?
Yeah, so in terms of Altice and MSG, I think they're pretty much at a standstill. An analyst note last week said that resolution is unlikely soon, if ever. So in the meantime, there are some options that fans have. You could subscribe to a different network that, or a different cable provider that does carry these channels. And I believe the other two major providers in the New York area do carry the channels. So you have that going for you. Or you could subscribe to this over-the-top service that's actually partly owned by MSG. And that's something that actually Altice is pushing. They're saying if you don't, if you do want to continue subscribing and you want to get this content, you should just buy it over the top.
That's a gamble then for Altice, because if the subscriber can get it somewhere else, and I think what Altice has almost 2 million TV subscribers, are they taking a gamble that they're going to lose customers?
I think that's an open question, but it really highlights this tension that the traditional pay TV providers are feeling. A lot of sports streaming is going to, or rather a lot of sports programming is going to streaming. It's going to these over-the-top options so that people can sort of follow their fandoms and subscribe to these more skinny bundles and get the content that they want. I think what these more traditional cable companies are kind of responding to is that people feel like cable is too expensive to begin with, and so they want to kind of jettison these additional costs that come from carrying sports maybe not everyone subscribes to or is watching. So I don't know, it's kind of a delicate dance there.
Yeah, Altice, by the way, operates under the Optimum brand. And I guess this all comes down to Altice trying to slow the cord cutting, which has really picked up pace in the last decade. But still, there's still plenty of people who do subscribe to these cable packages and pay quite a bit of money monthly. Kelcee, I want to ask you about a analyst note recently about MSG Networks and what happens to this business if this dispute with Altice is not resolved. Because Rich Greenfield over at Lightshed Partners has talked about a possible bankruptcy over at MSG Networks. And of course, this is based on one analyst's perspective. This is not what is necessarily going to happen. What is he alleging?
Yeah, so he's basically alleging that the MSG is, not going to be in good financial standing if they are unable to resolve this impasse with Altice. So, I wasn't able to do a lot of independent reporting on that point, but I do think, again, that just points back to the precarious situation that regional sports networks are finding themselves in if they, continue losing subscribers through traditional channels.
Well, Kelcee, let me jump right in there. I mean, Scarlet, JP Morgan analyst David Karnofsky also shares those views. He thinks that, that MSG is at risk, that the bonds are at risk. And here we're talking about, let's be clear, Kelcee, we're talking about Altice with ticker symbol ATUS on the New York Stock Exchange, Madison Square Garden Sports Corp, MSGS, and then there's Sphere Entertainment, right? All of those are listed entities, and they all have a lot of debt outstanding. So, I mean, there's a lot of investors that are involved here. Talk to us a little bit about what you're hearing. I mean, are investors, upset by this? Some investors might actually be happy by this, right? So talk to us a little bit about the capital structure of these companies and how it all comes together.
I've been covering the telecom industry, including some of these like carriage disputes for almost a decade. And this is a sort of tale as old as time, and I think these types of disputes are only going to be picking up, and it's only going to continue raising a lot of question marks for publicly traded companies like these.
Just one mention here. We talk about the Knicks and the Rangers. MSG and MSG Sportsnet also broadcast the New York Islanders,
the Devils,
and the New Jersey Devils, as well as some New York Giants and Buffalo Bills games. Now, we know the Rangers and the Islanders are doing terribly, so I don't know how many viewers are tuning in or upset that they can't get those games, but the Devils have been doing well. Not so much for the Giants, right, Damian?
Well, look, and just to kind of re-up on that last question, I'm not a credit analyst either, Kelcee, so I hate to put you on the spot there, but, our friends at JP Morgan, David is, and so he is saying here that the loss of Optimum, the carriage, could actually be a net positive for Sphere Entertainment, potentially pushing MSG Networks toward a full default scenario and clearing over $700 million in non-recourse debt from the company's balance sheet. So that would actually boost its valuation. So it's really just sophisticated capital structure, arbitrage stuff going on here for the real heavyweights in Wall Street to kind of sort through and I guess profit from.
Not much consolation, though, if you can't get these games and you want to, and you're being told to go to the Gotham Sportsnet or something else,
right?
Or subscribe to Fubo TV, or
is that
YouTube
the option,
TV?
Kelcee? I mean, what are your options if you just lost access to these games? Do you have to download the app? Is that the only way?
Yeah, Yeah, so you can download the app, or you might consider switching cable providers. I spoke with one person who, as soon as he found out that this was, they were losing access to MSG, he switched to Xfinity, and I believe Xfinity already, has a deal with MSG to carry it. So, I think that there are some other local options if you do want to see this on the air.
Michael Barr, I feel like this goes back to the heart of the problem, which is if you're a sports fan and you want to watch games live, it's impossible to figure out how you can watch them.
Well, yeah,
you have to Google it constantly, and then you have to ask yourself, wait a minute, is this blacked out? Is this not blacked out?
Forget even Google. Kelcee, I'm sorry. Old man Barr's about to talk here, because it's like when I wanted to watch something live, I got the rabbit ears ready. I got everything all set. I still had a beer on the couch, but I still had the rabbit ears. But streaming, forget cable. That's old school too, just cable. Streaming has, in general, changed everything, and I don't know if we can get it back.
Exactly. I think this latest impasse, again, just really speaks to the fragmentation of the sports landscape and how cable companies and content companies are sort of grappling with these changes and having to change their business models and the way they do business with each other in response.
Can there be a way where maybe all sides get together and they say kumbaya and it can be done before the end of the season?
I wish I had an answer to that, but if you guys hear something, if you hear that there's a resolution, you let me know, because I'd be interested to know that too.
Well, I will go, and because I want to see the games. Yes, I get it. The Rangers are looking really good, and but I still want to see the games. If you're a fan of the team, take Scarlet. She's wearing a Rangers jacket right now. So you still
and I get made fun of every day when I walk through the office, given how bad the team is playing right now.
Kelcee Griffis, and you wrote this, by the way, with Hannah Miller, also great at Bloomberg, and we want to give credit to both of you. Okay, here's the question.
Yep.
Here it is. Who's going to win the Super Bowl this year, Kelcee?
Who's going to win the Super Bowl this year for me?
Yes.
Well, as a Taylor Swift fan, I have to say I would love to see the Kansas City Chiefs go again, because I would like to see a certain blonde pop star in the stands again. I think that's pretty entertaining.
Oh, as a Detroit fan, look at the time. We're all done. Kelcee,
you just wanted a certain answer.
Kelcee, thank you so much for joining us on the Bloomberg Business of Sports. We appreciate it. Up next, we turn to golf and a Trump-owned golf venue that's slated to host a LIV Golf tournament. For my colleagues Scarlet Fu and Damian Sassower, I'm Michael Barr. You're listening to the Bloomberg Business of Sports from Bloomberg Radio around the world.
This is Bloomberg Business of Sports from Bloomberg Radio.
This is the Bloomberg Business of Sports, where we explore the big money issues in the world of sports. I'm Michael Barr, along with my colleagues Scarlet Fu and Damian Sassower. While President-elect Donald Trump is heading back to D.C., some high-profile golf is slated to head back to one of his resorts in Florida. LIV Golf will head to the Trump National Doral Golf Club near Miami for the fourth time, but only the first time while Trump is a sitting U.S. president. For more on Trump's long association with golf and LIV, we welcome Bloomberg News wealth reporter Annie Massa. Annie, welcome to the Bloomberg Business of Sports.
Thanks for having me.
Well, let's start with the article that you wrote. President-elect Donald Trump's Doral Resort, that's the one in Florida, will host the Saudi-backed LIV Golf in April. And this is the fourth time it has happened, Annie, but I think the first time that it will happen when he's president.
That's right. So it's continuing. There's a very friendly relationship between Trump and LIV. And the fact that LIV will host once again at Trump's Miami Golf Resort is kind of a subject of controversy. And this has been long simmering. But as you mentioned, it will be the first time that this happens with Trump as the sitting president. And, the crux of the controversy is that this is a Saudi-backed, golf group. And having the sitting president poised to reap the financial benefits of hosting the tournament there is kind of draws some skeptics for sure.
Can you talk a little bit about what the Trump organization structure looks like? Because
a lot of business people who become elected officials in government tend to put their assets in a trust and then don't have any actual practical or hands-on oversight over the business during the time that they're in office. Is that what we're seeing with President-elect Trump?
President-elect Trump is very unusual in that, yes, his assets have been put in a trust, but he refused to divest completely of the Trump Organization. So now the Trump Organization is run by his sons, Eric and Don Jr., and so and we can see from his disclosures that he's absolutely getting income from all of these Trump Organization properties and operations all around the world, and golf has become golf courses. Yeah, golf has become an ever greater. An ever more important piece of that. So he had more than $500 million worth of income from his golf and resort properties in the most recent financial disclosure that we saw. So this is no small amount of money that Trump is earning from golf and resorts. And so that all, I mean, goes to show you how important it is to him, to his personal fortune, and hosting big events like the LIV one that will happen in April, the week before the Masters, absolutely contribute to that.
Annie, I may be here talking to you on the Bloomberg Business of Sports, but my day job is running emerging market fixed income for Bloomberg Intelligence. And, you know, the Friends of Trump trade is in full effect right now from Argentina to Israel to Hungary. And, just on Tuesday, we heard that Hussein Sajwani, the billionaire head of Damac Group, I believe is how you pronounce it, announced that he was going to invest more than $20 billion to build new data centers in the U.S. Now, this is the same chap, if I'm not mistaken, who has previously partnered with Trump to build, what else? Luxury golf courses in Dubai. So the Friends of Trump, I'm just curious, who benefits here, from LIV Golf being held at a Trump resort in the U.S.? I mean, what's the game plan here? What do you think the angle is from Trump's perspective?
You're so right. And one thing that was striking about that announcement about the data centers that would be financed here in the U.S. By this billionaire head of Damac Group, this is yet another, that announcement was made the same day that this LIV Golf schedule came out. So those were two prominent examples of how Trump's business ties in the Middle East have only gotten, more prominent since he left office. And, you saw that in just one day with two major announcements that affect Trump and his business partnerships around the Middle East.
I want to focus more on why this is controversial. Human rights advocates have criticized this because they're saying LIV is operating under the auspices of the Saudi regime, and U.S. intelligence has linked the 2018 murder of Washington Post journalist Jamal Khashoggi, and that has just raised the ire of a lot of people. Can you expand more on that?
Of course. Stepping back, the reason that it's controversial that a Trump property would host LIV Golf, or the reason that it's controversial that Trump has this relationship to LIV, is because the Saudi sovereign wealth fund is financing LIV. And so you're linking back the money that LIV has to throw around to throw these kinds of events at Trump property to a regime that has a very bracing human rights record. And moreover, as president, Trump is going to be the man in charge of relationships with all sorts of with the Middle East. So it's going to be a big focus going forward, and already has been, that he does so much business with Middle East business partners, and that the Trump Organization is hosting an event like this.
The election of Donald Trump has a lot of people excited about the civil war in golf kind of healing, because LIV Golf versus PGA, it was kind of a death match until they announced that they were going to merge, or parts of them were going to merge, and then that kind of has just played itself out, and it hasn't happened yet. Damian, I know that you are a golf fan. You certainly play golf, and you watch some golf. Do you watch PGA versus LIV Golf? Do you have loyalties to one entity over another?
Well, Scarlett, I must confess, I do not watch any LIV events. I just found them to be far too hokey for me. But
why? Why are they hokey?
The pace of play, the match play, I just, I just couldn't get into it. And, like a traditional, 4-day, make the cut, Saturday, Sunday PGA format. I'm sorry, I'm just a traditionalist in that way. But I will say this. I don't know if anyone caught this, but just this week, this new format, this, I guess it's more like a video game, where you hit into this huge, you're in a stadium. And
right, TGL.
I don't know if anybody caught. Yep. And it was supposedly a smashing success, despite the fact that, it was pretty lopsided in terms of the outcome. I think it was a 9-2 victory for I don't know if it was the Bay Area or the LA. I mean, there's a bunch of these little, golf clubs that, even Stevie Cohen owns the New York one right now, right? Mm-hmm. So I've heard that format is actually quite interesting. I must confess, I didn't watch it, but Scarlet, these new golf formats are real, and they threaten to change, the way in which we all enjoy the sport.
See, Annie, this is why I love auto racing, because
there's no disrupting it.
There's no disrupting that. But it's a thing that, back to President-elect Trump. He has hosted other events, sporting events as well, back when they had the old Taj Mahal back in Atlantic City, because he hosted some WWE events.
Yeah, and one thing I should mention on PGA versus LIV, by the way, is that Trump's relationship to the PGA has been a bit fraught in the past. Obviously, as you were mentioning, a bit of a more venerable golf tournament. And so Trump basically, there was a plan to have a PGA tournament at a Trump property in 2022 that was pulled after the January 6th riots. So he's clashed with the PGA, and that may also play into his love of the LIV tournament. He has this long-standing history there.
But, his profile would suggest he's a traditionalist when it comes to playing golf. I don't know anything about golf, but I'm guessing that men of a certain age play the traditional PGA style golf rather than, the LIV golf that I guess moves much faster, right, Damian?
Yep. No, that's exactly right. Look, to your point, and just going to this new golf league, this TGL, and all these different formats that are popping up left, front, and center, Scarlet, at the end of the day, it just speaks to the, just the rise of golf in general, and how a sport that was once not accessible by, every household, forget about the US, but across the planet, has become increasingly more so. And I think that's the real kind of takeaway here, is that Trump was early on. I think he, if I'm not mistaken, Annie, doesn't Trump Organization derive something on the order of $500 million in revenue a year from his residential and resort properties? Does that number sound right?
That's income that Trump has reported. That $500 million figure is income that Trump has reported from his golf and resort properties in his most recent financial disclosure.
And that was an annual number. Wow. That's just amazing, right? Think about that number, and that's just, Trump resorts. So, there you go.
It has been, outside of Doral, Trump has hosted LIV tournaments in New Jersey and D.C., and you can see, I'm trying to get the right word. I guess you want to say this friendship, this relationship that he has with LIV, and is going to continue to grow. How much money can he make as long as he sticks with LIV?
Well, that's right. And that's at the crux of the questions around and the criticism of Trump's conflicts of interest here is that, it's not just Miami. He's hosting the Trump Organization is hosting LIV in other locations as well. And that's the question. As you continue to derive income from these huge events and all the associated kind of money that can bring in, is that appropriate when the benefits accrue to sitting president of the United States?
We could start a putt-putt tournament.
Oh, boy.
And, man, do you know how much money we could make if we did that? Who's
going to back us, Michael Barr?
I think we're out of time. Annie, thank you. Thank you so much for joining us here on the Bloomberg Business of Sports.
Thanks.
Our thanks to Bloomberg News wealth reporter Annie Massa for joining us. In other news in golf, Tiger Woods recently rolled out a new futuristic style of golf he and his backers are hoping will bring new fans to the game. It's a new golf league called TGL, co-founded by Woods and Rory McIlroy in partnership with the PGA. It's a new high-tech version of the game played in a team competition style indoors. The inaugural event has already been in the history books. The Bay, they got the win over the New York Golf Club. And by the way, ESPN likes the viewership. According to Sportico, they averaged 919,000 viewers that took place Tuesday night, and they found a younger audience than a typical golf tournament as the organizers intended because it's in a 2-hour format. Up next on the show, we turn to college football and its newest big-time head coach, Bill Belichick. For my colleagues Scarlet Fu and Damian Sassower, I'm Michael Barr. You're listening to the Bloomberg Business of Sports from Bloomberg Radio around the world.
This is Bloomberg Business of Sports from Bloomberg Radio.
Thanks for joining us on the Bloomberg Business of Sports. We explore the big money issues in the world of sports. I'm Michael Barr, along with my colleagues Scarlet Fu and Damian Sassower. One of the biggest stories in sports right now is Bill Belichick. Everyone figured he was going back to an NFL team if he coached again, but instead, he's heading to the University of North Carolina. Here to talk about what that means for college football and the future of UNC's program is Michael Lombardi. He's the new general manager of UNC's football program, and he'll be working directly with Belichick. Michael, welcome to the Bloomberg Business of Sports.
Thank you. It's good to be here. Hope all is well. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you. I guess you're starting out with a Happy New Year. You've got one whale of a coach. Tell us about the impact and what that means for the team.
Well, I mean, it means for tremendously the state of North Carolina, the community of Chapel Hill. I mean, to get the greatest coach of all time from pro football to really embark on college football and embrace it with all the energy that he possibly has. He's on the road today. He's in Charlotte recruiting. Talking to young men, trying to get them to build this North Carolina program into the kind of program we believe it can be and it's capable of being. It's had many great players, but maybe not so many great teams. They've won one ACC championship since 1980, so we're here to hopefully try to fix that.
Hold on, Michael. Is it true that Bill Belichick is on X on Twitter now? I mean, does he have a Twitter handle? I mean, this is unbelievable. Did you ever in your lifetime of working with Bill since the 80s, 90s, ever once think that Bill Belichick would have his own Twitter handle?
Well, I don't know about the Twitter or the InstaFace or any of that, but I do know what I think people never really understood about Bill is he's a great recruiter. You know, the imagery that people have of Bill at the press conference is not who Bill is behind the doors in terms of how he interacts with players, how he communicates to players, how players tend to gravitate to him. He's very direct, very honest. And I think to me, that's what sells a program. And that's why he's connecting with kids. And we've got, a lot of kids that want to come to North Carolina and help build our program. And because of him, and, we're going to be a professional program. I mean, that's what we're all about. We are going to embrace this, the challenges that lies ahead of us, and we're going to do the things that we have to do to build it and get it back. And we're talking about making it, look, college football has become a professional program. We know that, right? It's no longer collegiate, right? It's, we have to teach these young men that the difference between what an amateur does and what a professional does, right? Amateurs have goals, professionals have systems, and that's our job to do that.
Michael, I've seen the pictures of Coach Belichick in Rolesville, North Carolina, recruiting 4-star recruits. I know that you already added 15 new transfers from the portal. You retained a few that were, at risk of leaving. I mean, I guess, we could talk about developing players all day long and what a great educator Bill and yourself are, but just how deep are you guys into the portal right now? I mean, seriously, 4,500 players are on the portal. You guys got to be watching tape every minute of every day, no?
Yeah, you're trying to, but we've had experience doing this, right? So the portal is a little bit like, and I'm old to remember this, we had a thing called Plan B in the NFL. I don't know what Plan A was, but we had a thing called Plan B, and so, and that was teams could freeze 37 players and then the rest of the roster were free agents. It kind of was a back-end loaded system. And so teams would put players out there that maybe nobody knew about and hope they wouldn't touch them, and then team put older guys that were out there that weren't as good as they hoped they would be. I think that's a little bit what the portal's about, right? It's some guys are in there that haven't had a chance to demonstrate their skill set. They might have 3 years, and there's some guys in there that have demonstrated their skill set, and it's not quite what they are good at doing at the school they're currently at or given a chance, and they want to go somewhere else. So it's a little bit of a combination of free agency and Plan B put together.
You kind of touched off on it, and I want to expand more about it. NIL, and I'm just going to come out and be clean. I used to be one of those guys where, go on, kids, get what you can while you can. And then the whole thing got screwed up. And I'm like, I'm not sure now what can happen because the schools obviously can't pay the students if they get an NIL deal. There's the middleman, and the middleman is where everything goes to the pot. Can you comment more on that?
Well, I mean, look, I think one of the things that we've learned in college football are players, they're naming, they've made this game football so bright, and they deserve to get paid. And I think, to me, how that money gets to the players, whether it's through their agent or through some middleman, I think that needs to get really kind of handled, because there's a lot of shadiness that goes into this that maybe it needs to get certified like the players have in the National Football League, where there's a union, where there's, you have to be certified to be an agent to get there. And look, we all know it's a negotiation with players, so there's going to be some level of dishonesty. We're playing poker here, right? Yeah. How many aces do you have? How many do I have? And somebody's got to call the bluff in a negotiation and see what's going on. So I think, it's just part of this growing up process that's college football. Like I said earlier, this is really about how to learn to become a professional once you've been an amateur.
Michael, you came to UNC. Your quote to restore greatness to UNC football, and I guess what Michael Barr is trying to ask you is, do you work for DOA Bubba Cunningham, or do you really work for the various NIL collectives and UNC alum that deliver the funding you need to put the most talented players on the field, right? I mean,
I work to winning. I work towards winning. Yeah. I think ultimately all our jobs are about winning. Right. And I think this is a collective group here. I don't think, to bring Bill in was a huge step for the university. Chancellor Roberts, was instrumental along with Bubba Cunningham in making that happen. And it's through their vision that we work for. Yep. We all work for it. And that's part of being a leader. Leaders communicate the message to everybody in the organization so that there is alignment. See, people talk about being on the same page, and your question is really centered on, are we on the same page? Because everybody's on the same page until you lose the first game. And then when you lose the first game, everything falls apart. Nobody's on that page. Everybody turns the page. But when you have alignment, when you have a philosophical belief with that goes from the top of the organization, from Chancellor Roberts, all the way down to the young interns that we hire here, then you can gain alignment. And that's what we're after. Alignment means you work for the philosophy. And I think that's ultimately what we do.
Well, Michael Barr, Michael Lombardi is talking about alignment, and we know Nick Saban is, looking for work also, or maybe he's not anymore, but he was once defensive coordinator on the Cleveland Browns, working for Bill Belichick, notoriously close friends and colleagues. I wonder what Nick is thinking out there watching Coach Belichick return to the college ranks just as soon as he leaves. I mean, any comments there, Mr. Lombardi?
Well, I mean, look, I love Nick to death, but I think Nick's a little bit too tied up with his car dealerships and all the other things he's got going to come back here. I mean, Nick is a businessman, and he's got his time allocated for what he needs to do with his business, and I wish him nothing but the best. It was an incredible time to spend with him in North Carolina, at Cleveland, where, we only gave up 204 points on that defense in 1994, which was an incredible record.
Now, which kind of goes to the next question. Were you shocked? I was shocked that Bill Belichick was not picked up by another NFL team, and he was there for the pickings for you guys. Were you surprised about that?
No, in one sense I was, the stupidity of people. I mean, look, the Atlanta Falcons claimed they had 3 candidates that were better than Bill Belichick when they interviewed. They put that out there. They claimed that. Those aren't my words. That's what Terry Fontenot, their general manager, and Rich McKay, their president, that's what they put out. If you can find 3 better coaches than Bill Belichick on planet Earth, get me out on a tourism tour. I'll start trying to see if I can find it, because that doesn't exist. But that was the rhetoric that was put out. But that's really an indication of how people felt threatened by his ability and his talent, because they wanted to protect their own turf. When I first started the National Football League in 1984, George Young, the general manager of the New York Football Giants, had a great saying. He said, most people in the NFL just protect their desk. And I think that's why Bill wasn't working. Everybody was trying to protect their desk.
Michael, I have to ask you this. Maybe you really tell me the truth about it. I had heard a rumor that, Bill had submitted some 400-page plan to the UNC board when he was applying. And, it sounds a lot like, Jerry Maguire's mission statement. I mean, how does Bill Belichick need to, submit a mission statement or a plan of what he's going to do to anybody, right? We're talking about Bill Belichick here. I mean, is there any truth to that? Did he really put together?
He dispelled that. But I think more than anything, Bill has a plan.
Yeah.
Bill doesn't have a 400-page plan. Bill had a lifetime plan. I mean, he's been doing this his whole life. So that's just not a plan. That's a lifetime plan.
Can you tell us just about Bill Belichick, the man? Because you've worked with him for years. You know him personally. And you touched off on it before. Yes, there's that facade that you have when you're talking to reporters and blah, 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 blah. But I think deep down that Bill Belichick is a super dude.
Really tremendous. Well, the greatest friend you can have. Whatever. He's honest. He's got great integrity. He's somebody that you can count on. And he's the definition of what a true friend is. And the players seem to feel that. You talk to any player who played there, they understand it. And it's important for him to maximize your talent. Isn't that what a coach does? All great leaders stand behind people when things are going well. All great leaders stand in front of people when they don't go well. I think that describes Bill perfectly.
So, Michael, my last question for you is, where are we now, in building out the team? I mean, you have to get a coaching staff in place. You need a quarterback, right? I mean, talk to us a little bit about, what comes next, what your focus is here.
Well, the portal's kind of closed. It's just some people. We'll still get back on high school recruits that haven't signed, so we're working on that. This isn't about adding players. It's about developing players, too. So our job, our mandate is to find a way to make the players that we currently have, whether we brought them in the portal, whether we brought them in high school, or whether they were North Carolina Tar Heels before, our most important thing is to make everybody better. It goes to the interns in the personnel department, to the players that play on the field.
Okay, before I let you go, I've been asking people lately, your pick for the team that's going to win the Super Bowl. I'm hoping you say the team that I'm praying that you say. But which team do you think will win the Super Bowl?
It's so hard to predict who wins the Super Bowl, but I think Detroit's performance against a very good Minnesota team was impressive.
You got it right. You got you.
I think it was really impressive. And I think, one thing we have to learn in life, I wrote this for the Daily Coach, which I still write on a website about leadership. And, I think resistance is really something. Persistence allows us to build strength. Oregon didn't lose a game in college football. And when they got into that game against Ohio State, they didn't have enough resistance to endure. I think sometimes when you're challenged and you get knocked down, it helps you reset reality. I think the Lions losing last year helped them reset their reality. And look, I think Baltimore's the same way. I think Baltimore with Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry now, they can do that. So I like both those teams a lot.
Yeah, I'm a diehard Detroit fan, and I've been there when they didn't win a doggone game. And I have a T-shirt that says, I was a Detroit Lions fan before it was cool. Michael Lombardi, new general manager of the University of North Carolina football program. Thank you, sir, for joining us on the Bloomberg Business of Sports.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. For my colleague Scarlet Fu and Damian Sassower, I'm Michael Barr. Tune in again next week for the latest on the stories moving big old money in the world of sports. Don't forget to catch our podcast on all your podcast platforms. Subscribe now on Apple, Spotify, and anywhere else you get your podcast. You're listening to the Bloomberg Business of Sports from Bloomberg Radio around the world.